The rain hadn't stopped pounding Chicago's streets all day, and Jake Rivers was soaked to the bone when he pushed open the front door of his small suburban house. His boots squelched against the hardwood, leaving faint muddy prints he'd clean up later. After a brutal 16-hour shift at the logistics warehouse, hauling crates, double-checking manifests, and crawling under a truck to fix a busted hydraulic line, he was running on fumes. All he wanted was a hot shower and 5 minutes apiece. But the house was too still, the kind of quiet that hums with something unspoken. No flicker of a TV, no clatter of dishes, not even the soft glow of the stove light Emily always left on for him. Jake, 32, wasn't the type to complain. He'd grown up in a working-class family, learned early that showing up and getting the job done was how you build a life. That's why, despite the ache in his shoulders, he'd spend his lunch break scribbling a note on a blue sticky pad. Asterisk, you're my everything. Asterisk, he'd tucked it onto a Tupperware of homemade chicken Alfredo, Emily's favorite, before heading to work at 4 a.m. It was a small gesture, the kind he'd been doing for years to remind her he cared, even when the warehouse chewed up his days. He'd even thrown in garlic bread, wrapped tight in foil to keep it warm. But there it sat, untouched on the kitchen counter, the note still attached, the foil uncrinkled. Jake's chest tightened, not from exhaustion, but from a gnawing instinct he couldn't shake. He dropped his work bag by the door, the thud echoing in the silent house. Rounding the corner to the kitchen, he saw her, Emily, his wife of 6 years, sitting at the table in the dark, her face lit only by the pale glow of her phone. She didn't look up, didn't flinch, just scrolled with a focus that felt like a wall between them. "Hey," Jake said, keeping his voice light despite the weight in his gut. "You okay?" No response, just the soft tap of her thumb on the screen. He stepped closer, trying again. "Ing, everything higt." She exhaled, barely audible, and kept scrolling. That's when her phone lit up with a notification, bright and unmissable. Jake didn't mean to look, swore he didn't, but the words burned into his vision. Asterisk, last night was incredible. Can't wait for our next meeting. Asterisk sent at 2:37 a.m. from someone named Michael. A winking emoji punctuated it like a jab to the ribs. Jake's breath caught. The room seemed to tilt, but he forced himself to stay steady. "Who's Michael?" he asked, his voice low, unfamiliar even to himself. Emily finally looked up, her eyes calm. Too calm, like she'd rehearsed this moment. "Just a guy from work," she said, setting the phone down, screen dark now. "He's got a weird sense of humor. You know how people get when they're up late? Working." Jake blinked, his mind racing to process her words. "A co-worker texts you like that at 2 in the morning?" She shrugged, unfazed. "He was probably drinking. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal." Jake's tone sharpened, though he fought to keep it even. "You think that's funny?" "I didn't say I thought it was funny," she snapped, her voice suddenly edged with defiance. "I said he thinks he's funny. Why are you making this a thing?" The air grew heavy, the silence between them a living thing. Jake's hands clenched at his sides, grease still staining his knuckles from the day's work. He wanted to push, to demand answers, but her eyes were already shifting, turning the conversation into something he didn't recognize. "Look, Jake," she said, leaning back in her chair, arms crossed. "This isn't working. You're gone all the time, and when you're here, you're not here. I feel like I'm living with a stranger." The words hit like a slap. Jake had been pouring everything into their life, every overtime shift, every early morning, every sticky note, all to keep the bills paid, the fridge full, the future secure. "I'm doing this for us," he said, his voice steady but strained. "I'm busting my ass so we don't have to worry." Emily's eyes narrowed. "You think a paycheck fixes everything? You think a Tupperware and a note make up for you never being around?" "I'm tired of feeling invisible, Jake." He opened his mouth to respond, but she cut him off, her voice rising. "I'm giving you 1 month. 1 month to start acting like a husband again, or I'm done." The ultimatum landed like a brick through glass. Jake stood frozen, the weight of her words sinking in. He hadn't yelled, hadn't accused her of anything beyond asking about the text. Yet here she was, flipping the script, making him the problem. His mind flashed back to the message. Asterisk, last night was incredible, asterisk, and the casual way she dismissed it. He wanted to bring it up again, to point out how she'd been staying late at work, how her phone was always face down now, how she'd started pulling away from his touch. But the words caught in his throat. Instead, he nodded slowly. Got it, he said, turning toward the stairs. He needed a shower, needed to wash off the day and the conversation before he said something he couldn't take back. As the hot water hit his skin, he replayed her words, her tone, the way she didn't flinch. And for the first time, he let himself wonder if the life he'd been building wasn't just crumbling. It was already gone. Jake Rivers woke to the sound of his alarm at 3:45 a.m., the same grinding beep that had yanked him out of bed for years. His body ached from yesterday's shift, but the real weight was in his chest, where Emily's ultimatum, 1 month, or I'm done, sat like a stone. He rolled out of bed, careful not to wake her, though she hadn't stirred when he came home last night. The memory of her phone lighting up with Michael's message last night was incredible, burned in his mind. He pushed it down, grabbed his thermos, and headed to the warehouse. Work was the one place he could still control. At the logistics center, Jake threw himself into the rhythm of loading pallets and checking shipment logs. But his focus kept slipping. Emily's words replayed. Asterisk, you're never here. Asterisk, he'd been working overtime for months, saving for a down payment on a bigger place, something she'd once said she wanted. Now, her accusation felt like a trap, twisting his effort into neglect. By lunch, he sat alone in the break room, staring at the uneaten sandwich in his bag. His phone buzzed, a text from his buddy, Tom, a forklift driver who never missed a chance to grab a beer after work. Asterisk, saw Emily downtown last night at O'Malley's with some guy. Looked cozy. You good? Asterisk. Jake's grip tightened on the phone. Emily had told him she was home last night, catching up on emails. He typed a quick reply, all good, thanks, but his hands shook as he set the phone down. O'Malley's was a trendy bar, not her usual spot. The guy had to be Michael. Jake's mind raced, piecing together the last few weeks. Emily's phone was always face down now, buzzing at odd hours. She'd started taking calls in the bathroom, her voice hushed, the door locked. Last Sunday, she'd left for a work breakfast at 8 a.m., unheard of for someone who used to sleep until noon on weekends. When he'd offered to drive her, she'd brushed him off. Asterisk, it's just the team. You be bored. Asterisk. He couldn't let it go. Back home that evening, he waited until Emily left for one of her late meetings. The house was quiet again, but this time, he didn't sit still. He grabbed her laptop from the kitchen counter. She'd left it open, a rare slip. Her work email was logged in, and there it was, a thread with Michael, buried in a chain about a marketing campaign. Most messages were professional, but one stood out, sent at 11:43 p.m. last week. Asterisk, meet me at the usual spot tomorrow. Need you there. Asterisk, no context, no explanation. Jake's pulse quickened. He took a screenshot, emailed it to himself, and deleted the evidence from her sent folder. The next day, he started keeping a log. Every late night, every vague excuse, every time she flinched when he reached for her hand. He wrote it down in a small notebook he kept in his work bag. Wednesday, she came home at 9:17 p.m., claiming a client dinner. Thursday, her phone buzzed at 1 a.m. She silenced it and rolled over. Friday, he noticed her car wasn't in the lot when he drove by her office at 6:30 p.m., though she'd said she was swamped with deadlines. The pattern was clear, but Emily's confidence unnerved him. She never hesitated, never stumbled over her lies. When he asked about her day, she'd pivot. Asterisk. Why are you so paranoid, Jake? I'm just trying to get ahead at work. Asterisk. Her deflections were surgical. Each time he questioned her, she turned it back on him, making him doubt his instincts. You're suffocating me, she'd said last week, when he asked why she was texting during dinner. The accusation stung, but he started to wonder if she was right. Was he too clingy, too focused on work to notice her needs? The doubt gnawed at him, but then Tom called again, his voice low, hesitant. Asterisk, man. I didn't want to say anything, but I saw her again. Same guy, same bar. They weren't just talking, Jake. Her hand was on his arm, and she was laughing like she used to with you. Asterisk. That was the moment the fog cleared. Jake thanked Tom, hung up, and sat in his truck outside the warehouse, the engine idling. He didn't feel anger. Not yet. Just a cold clarity. Emily wasn't just distant. She was building a separate life, one where he didn't exist. He opened his notebook and added another entry. Asterisk, Tuesday, 8:22 p.m. Tom saw her with Michael at O'Malley's. Hand on his arm, laughing. Asterisk, he underlined Michael twice. That night, Emily came home late again, her keys jingling as she kicked off her shoes. Jake was on the couch, pretending to watch a Cubs game. "Long day?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral. She nodded, barely glancing at him. "Yeah, project's killing me. I am gonna shower." She grabbed her phone and headed upstairs. He waited until he heard the water running, then checked her coat pocket. A receipt from O'Malley's, time-stamped 7:14 p.m. 2 drinks, 1 tab. He slipped it into his notebook. The next morning, Emily was gone before he woke up. Another work breakfast. Jake didn't call her out. Instead, he drove to her office, parked a block away, and watched. At 8:45 a.m., her car pulled into the lot, but she wasn't alone. A man climbed out of the passenger seat, tall, sharp jaw, moving with the ease of someone who knew he was being watched. Michael. They didn't touch, but the way she smiled at him, quick and unguarded, was enough. Jake's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He didn't follow them inside. He didn't need to. The truth was starting to take shape, and he wasn't going to let it slip through his fingers. Jake Rivers didn't sleep the night after seeing Emily with Michael at her office parking lot. Her smile, quick, unguarded, reserved for someone else, looped in his mind like a stuck reel. By 4 a.m., he was already in his truck, the engine humming as he drove to the warehouse, his notebook tucked in his work bag. The log he'd been keeping, timestamps, receipts, Tom's sightings, was growing, but it wasn't enough. He needed proof, something undeniable, something that would silence Emily's deflections for good. Her ultimatum still stung. Asterisk 1 month, or I'm done. Asterisk, he wasn't going to let her rewrite reality anymore. That morning, Emily texted him, casual as ever. Asterisk, heading to a team retreat this weekend. Back Monday. Love you. Asterisk, the words felt hollow, a formality. She'd mentioned a retreat before, a company bonding trip to a hotel in Milwaukee, 2 hours from Chicago. No spouses, just work stuff, she'd said, brushing off his offer to drive her. Jake didn't reply. Instead, he called his supervisor and faked a stomach bug, securing a day off. He wasn't proud of lying, but the truth was slipping away, and he couldn't sit idle while it vanished. By noon, Jake was on the road, his phone GPS set to the Lakeview Inn, the hotel Emily had named. His hands gripped the wheel, knuckles pale, but his mind was sharp, focused. He didn't know what he'd do when he got there, confront her, watch from a distance, or just turn back. All he knew was he couldn't keep living in the fog of her lies. The drive was quiet, just the hum of tires and the occasional crackle of gravel under his truck. He parked across from the hotel, a mid-tier place with a glass-walled bar visible from the street. He killed the engine and waited, eyes fixed on the entrance. An hour passed. Nothing. Then, through the bar's windows, he saw her. Emily, sitting at a high-top table, leaning toward Michael. They weren't with a team. No laptops, no name tags, no coworkers. Just the two of them, her hand brushing his as she laughed at something he said. Jake's stomach twisted, but he stayed still, his breathing slow and deliberate. Then it happened. She leaned in, and they kissed. Not a peck, but a slow, deliberate kiss, the kind you don't share with just a coworker. Jake's hands moved before his mind caught up, pulling out his phone. He zoomed in, snapping photos through the glass, her hand on Michael's shoulder, his fingers grazing her wrist, their lips locked. Click, click, click. He caught every angle, every damning moment. He didn't storm in, didn't shout her name or bang on the window. The old Jake might have, but this one, the one who'd been gaslit for months, made to feel paranoid for noticing the truth, knew better. Rage wouldn't fix this. He needed something sharper, something that would cut through her carefully built facade. He sat in his truck for another 20 minutes, reviewing the photos. They were clear, unmistakable. Emily, radiant and unguarded, with Michael. The man who'd sent her texts at 2:37 a.m. The man she'd lied about. Jake drove back to Chicago, the photos burning a hole in his phone. He didn't play music, didn't call anyone, just let the silence settle. For the first time in weeks, he felt a strange calm, like the world had snapped into focus. The betrayal wasn't a suspicion anymore. It was a fact captured in pixels. When he got home, he transferred the photos to his laptop, locking them in a folder labeled asterisk proof. Asterisk, he added them to his notebook's timeline, writing, asterisk Saturday, 7:12 p.m., Lakeview Inn, Milwaukee. Emily and Michael kissing in bar. Asterisk, he underlined kissing until the pen tore the paper. Sunday morning, Emily texted again. Asterisk, retreat's going great. Miss you. Asterisk, Jake stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the reply button. He wanted to send her one of the photos, to watch her scramble, but he held back. Confronting her now would give her a chance to spin another lie, to turn it back on him. Instead, he typed, asterisk, glad you're having fun. See you Monday. Asterisk, let her think she was still in control. Let her walk back into the life she thought she'd mastered. That night, he sat at the kitchen table, his laptop open, the photos staring back at him. He wasn't planning a fight or a divorce. Not yet. He wanted something else, something that would make her face the truth without giving her room to dodge. He thought about her job, her pristine reputation as the rising star in her marketing firm. She'd always cared about what people thought, her colleagues, her boss, the clients who fawned over her presentations. That was her weakness. And Jake, the man who'd spent years writing her love notes on sticky pads, was starting to see how to use it. Monday morning, he called Lana, a friend from college who worked in HR at a sister company to Emily's firm. They hadn't spoken in months, but she owed him a favor after he'd helped her move last year. Lana, I need a way into Emily's company gala next week, he said, keeping his voice steady. No questions, just get me on the guest list. Lana hesitated, then agreed. You're on, Jake. Under your full name, no +1. What's this about? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The photos on his laptop were enough. Jake spent the next few days working his shifts, keeping his routine tight. He didn't confront Emily when she came home, all smiles and stories about the productive retreat. He nodded, asked basic questions, let her talk. Each lie she told, about team exercises, late-night brainstorming, felt like another nail in her coffin. He printed 50 copies of the clearest photo at a 24-hour pharmacy, each one sealed in a plain white envelope. He didn't write names or notes, just the image, raw and unfiltered. The gala was coming, and with it, his chance to turn her lies inside out. Jake Rivers spent the week before the gala moving through his life like a man on a mission. His shifts at the warehouse were mechanical, loading crates, signing manifests, nodding to coworkers, while his mind stayed locked on the plan. The 50 envelopes, each containing a photo of Emily kissing Michael at the Lakeview Inn, sat in a locked drawer at home. He hadn't confronted her, hadn't let a single word slip. Emily came and went, her lies about late meetings and client calls piling up, each one a thread in the web she thought she'd woven around him. But Jake wasn't caught anymore. He was ready. The night of the gala, a black tie event for Emily's marketing firm at a downtown Chicago venue. He drove alone. Lana's favor had worked. His name was on a guest list, no questions asked. He parked a block away, the envelopes tucked into a slim briefcase. Emily had left hours earlier, claiming it was just employees, no +1s. He nodded, said, have fun, and watched her leave, her heels clicking with purpose. She didn't know he'd be there, didn't know the truth was about to unravel. He entered the venue 15 minutes after the event started, blending into the crowd of suits and polished smiles. The room buzzed with chatter and clinking glasses, but Jake's focus was singular. He spotted Emily near the front, standing close to Michael, her arm brushing his as she laughed at something he whispered. They moved like a unit, confident, untouchable, as if their secret was still theirs. Jake's pulse stayed steady. He wasn't here to shout or throw punches. That was too easy, too fleeting. He wanted something that would linger, something that would strip away her carefully crafted image. He started at the back tables, moving quietly, placing an envelope on each one. No labels, no drama, just a plain white rectangle beside every name card. He worked fast, his hand steady, avoiding eye contact with curious guests. By the time he reached the front, he'd distributed all 50. He took a spot by the bar, ordered a soda, and waited. It didn't take long. A woman in a nearby table opened her envelope first, her hand pausing midair as she pulled out the photo. She whispered to the man next to her, who glanced at it and froze. The ripple began. Envelopes opened, murmurs spread, heads turned toward Emily and Michael. Emily was still smiling, oblivious, until a colleague approached her, photo in hand, voice low but sharp. Jake watched her face shift, confusion, then panic, as she took the picture. Her eyes darted around, scanning the room, until they locked on him. He stood still, meeting her gaze, his expression blank. For the first time, she had no comeback, no deflection. Michael leaned in, asking something but she didn't answer. The room's energy had changed. Conversations halted, glances sharpened, and Emily's colleagues began to pull away, their whispers cutting through the jazz trio's music. Jake didn't stay to watch the fallout. He set his glass down and walked out, the cool night air hitting his face as he crossed the street to his truck. He didn't need to see her crumble. The photos had done the work. Her reputation, her golden girl status, was unraveling in real time. Back home, he poured a coffee and sat at the kitchen table, the silence of the house now a comfort. His phone buzzed minutes later, Emily calling. He let it ring. 3 calls, then a text. Asterisk Jake, please. I need to talk. Asterisk another. Asterisk, how could you do this? Asterisk, he didn't respond. She'd built her cage. Now she could sit in it. The next morning, a message came from Carly, a coworker of Emily's he'd met once at a company picnic. Asterisk, everyone knew something was up, but nobody said it. You did. Thank you. Asterisk, Jake read it twice, then deleted it. The confirmation wasn't a surprise, but it solidified what he'd suspected. Emily's affair wasn't as hidden as she thought. Her charm, her ambition, had shielded her until now. He spent the day at work, moving through his tasks with a clarity he hadn't felt in months. The warehouse's noise, forklifts, shouting, the clatter of crates, grounded him. He was done playing the fool. When Emily came home that evening, the house was dark. Jake sat on the couch, a baseball game muted on the TV. Her keys jingled as she stepped inside, her steps hesitant. Jake, she called, her voice small. He didn't answer. She appeared in the doorway, holding one of the envelopes, the photo inside crumpled. What is this? She asked, her voice trembling. You tell me, he said, not looking up. Jake, she started, but he raised a hand, cutting her off. Not tonight, he said. You've said enough. She stood there, the envelope shaking in her grip, then turned and walked upstairs. The silence that followed was different, not the heavy quiet of secrets, but the kind that comes when a lie is exposed. Jake leaned back, exhaling. For the first time in months, he felt the weight lift. He wasn't the one running anymore. He'd laid the truth bare, and now Emily would have to face it, her colleagues, her boss, herself. The next day, he found a note on the kitchen counter, written in her handwriting. Asterisk, I'm sorry. I don't know how to fix this, but I'll try. Asterisk, he read it, folded it, and tucked it into his notebook with the rest of the evidence. Sorry wasn't enough, not yet. But as he headed to work, the sun breaking through Chicago's gray skyline, he knew one thing. He was in control now, and whatever came next would be on his terms. Jake Rivers woke to the faint sound of Emily's footsteps in a guest room above. It had been 3 weeks since the gala, where he'd exposed her affair with Michael by leaving photos for her colleagues to find. She hadn't gone to work since, her phone silent, her LinkedIn profile gone. The woman who once thrived on ambition now moved through the house like a shadow, her steps slow, deliberate. Jake kept his distance, sticking to the boundaries he'd set. No shared bed, no casual affection, no pretending things were normal. Her note, asterisk, I'm sorry. I'll try, asterisk, sat in his notebook with the rest of the evidence. Untouched, but not forgotten. Emily's first move came a week after the gala. She handed him her phone, unlocked, and a list of passwords to her email and social accounts. Check anything you want, she said, her voice steady but quiet. Ive blocked me fell. No calls, no messages, nothing. Jake took the phone, scrolled through her texts, and found nothing but work threads and a few chats with her sister. He handed it back without a word. She didn't push for approval, just nodded and walked away. That same day, she left a sticky note on the fridge. Asterisk therapy today, 3 p.m. talking about accountability. Asterisk Jake read it, then tossed it in the trash. Words weren't enough. Days blended into a tense routine. Jake worked his warehouse shifts, the clatter of forklifts and hum of machinery grounding him. Emily stayed home. Her absence from work a choice she didn't explain. She started cooking again, simple meals like roasted chicken or pasta, leaving plates for him in the fridge with no expectation he'd eat them. One night, he found a note beside a plate of stir-fry. Asterisk made enough for you. No pressure. Asterisk he ate alone, not because he forgave her, but because he was hungry. She didn't join him, didn't ask for thanks. It was the first time in months she hadn't tried to control the narrative. A month in, she handed him a new phone, its screen blank, its number fresh. "I didn't transfer anything," she said, holding his gaze. "Michael's gone. I want you to see it." Jake checked the device, empty except for a few apps and his number. He nodded, set it down, and went back to his coffee. Her old phone sat in a drawer, its text with Michael untouched. She hadn't deleted them, saying, "I want you to know how bad it got, so you see I'm not hiding anymore." He didn't read them. He didn't need to. The truth was already carved into his memory. Emily started therapy twice a week, though Jake had only asked for once. She left session summaries on the counter, not to win him over, but to prove she was trying. One read, "Asterisk, talked about why I chased validation. It wasn't about you. It was me running from my own insecurities." Asterisk, Jake burned that one in the sink, the flame curling the paper's edges. He wasn't ready to care about her reasons, not when her lies had made him question his own sanity. The turning point came at her sister's wedding, 6 weeks after the gala. Jake almost didn't go, wary of the whispers from Emily's co-workers who'd seen the photos. But he went, arriving separately, keeping to the edges of the reception. Emily stood alone by a table, her usual confidence gone. A former colleague approached, smirking, and made a jab about the gala. "Heard you threw quite a party." Emily didn't flinch. "I betrayed my husband," she said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "I hurt someone who deserved better. It's not a joke." The colleague froze, then walked away. Jake watched, his grip tightening on his glass. For the first time, she wasn't dodging or spinning. She was owning it. Later, her father pulled Jake aside. "She's not the same," he said. "I've never seen her take responsibility like that." Jake nodded, unsure if it changed anything. He wasn't here to forgive her, not yet. But the moment stuck with him, her voice, steady, unapologetic about her guilt. It wasn't a performance. It was raw. 2 months after the gala, they sat on the back porch as the sun dipped low. Emily handed him an envelope, her hands steady. Inside were divorce papers, signed by her. "You decide," she said. "If you want to end this, I'll respect it. If you want to try, I'm here. On your terms." Jake took the papers, his thumb tracing the edge. "What changed?" he asked. "I thought control was power," she said. "I thought I could have it all. Work, admiration, you, without choosing. But real strength is picking one person and not breaking them. I failed at that. I'm trying not to fail again." Her voice didn't waver, didn't beg. It was just her, stripped of excuses. Jake didn't answer right away. He walked inside, grabbed a lighter, and returned. They watched the papers burn in a metal bowl, the ashes curling into the evening air. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully. It was a choice to start over from nothing with no guarantees. "This doesn't mean we're fixed," he said, his voice firm. "You slip once, it's over. No second chances." "I know," she said, nodding. "I'll keep showing up." The weeks that followed were quiet, deliberate. Emily found a new job, far from Michael's office. She shared her work schedule, her emails, her calls, every detail open to Jake's scrutiny. She didn't push for closeness, didn't ask for his trust. She just followed the rules. Jake watched, not softening, but observing. He wasn't rebuilding their marriage yet. He was rebuilding himself, learning to trust his instincts again. For the first time, he felt like the one holding the pen, writing the story of what came next.